Remember, your whole goal with the 1 minute pitch is you're just trying to intrigue their interest enough so they're going to come over to your table later and spend more time with you. That's why we're doing this particular format. You're our guest of honor. I don't know, when we did this last time, we had the teams talk a little bit and then you talk. We only have about 20 minutes, but we should go to Diaspora first. How did you guys feel pitching?
I can just change the section. I mean, I think it's always nerve-wracking, but felt fairly okay about what we did.
Yeah, I don't know, for me it's like it comes very natural for me to pitch all the time, and I am very passionate, but when I have to structure a pitch, like knowing that I have to put all this information, I'm like, no, I don't feel as confident as I usually do, so I'm thinking how to transform that in a more natural, organic way.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about having it recorded is if you want to share this recording even with a couple friends and say, what did you get from this? What was still questions for you? Like, what are the 3 most important things in a minute you really want somebody as a takeaway is kind of important? Wes, did you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I thought you guys did a nice job. 1 minute is quick, so it's hard to say a lot, right? But it's like a teaser and a way to get people interested in what you're doing to follow up. I think you did a good job of sort of defining the problem with violence. One thing I don't like is when people say if we could just get 1% of a market, right? So it's such a big market, if we could just get 1% of it or 1/10% of it. I think it was an illustrative comment that you made. If we could just get 1% of that, that's a ton of capital. But the question is always, well, how? Like, yeah, it's so big if you got 1%. You're talking about $400 million, $450 million. Yeah. That's a lot of capital, but like, how exactly are you going to go about? So talk more about kind of like that bottom up. And maybe, again, one of it is really tight, but I guess part of it is, part of the solution is tapping into the funds, and then the other part of the solution is directing those funds into certain programs, right? And I guess that's where I was left with kind of wondering a little bit about, like, well, what are these programs? Have you identified certain programs that are better than others? Like, what does that look like?
So maybe in a quick example of how you would invest the money. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's unique? So it's like the idea is tapping into the flow of remittances back to places like El Salvador to do some good. But like, what's the unique hook to get the money, and where's the money going to go?
Yeah, because our model is like a pay for success or a social impact bond, but we try to explain that in 1 minute. It's also
that's hard.
It's hard,
Yeah.
so we try to make it more a broader sense of what we're trying. But yeah, like an example would probably work.
Yeah, and you'd probably say we're social impact bond, so we get money from people to solve a societal issue by investing in a nonprofit, for example. That might be a way. And you might have to play around with it. The things I didn't hear and ask, unless I missed something. You need to make sure you ask your audience for something, I would suggest.
I would just kind of add on to Wes's point. You illustrated the need, and so the challenge for a lot of teams was spending about 30 seconds on the need. A lot of people spent a fairly long time on that. So spending a little bit less time on that and spending the remainder of that time on what's your role in the solution? Because you didn't really explain, like, what are you two gonna do in this ecosystem? And how, like, and kind of to this point, how are you gonna get the funding? How are you gonna direct it? Like, what's that role look like? And trying to figure out a quick way to say that. I think a story is maybe a nice way to do it. Okay, but great, I thought it was really nice. Good stage presence. Yeah. Okay, next team.
And by the way, the more you practice this, the more it will just be like in your sleep, right? And this is the point, is it, you run into somebody in an elevator, you run into somebody, you have this like ready to go. It's almost like canned for you. It's
No, and for example, for me, I've been practicing a lot with random people, everyone, my students even, like, I'm working on this. That's great.
It's
So
great.
right now, I don't know, it's like
That's
hard
great.
to get everything.
It's great. Okay, Victor. How did you feel?
Well, I think could be even more polished, of course, more fluent. But yeah, we have still another 2 weeks maybe by the time we present.
So you want to go first?
Sure. So diabetes, right?
Yeah.
I thought you did a nice job. You clearly defined the problem. I think you mentioned about sort of like time spent on problem definition, and with 1 minute, you have like that's your your real estate, right, is 1 minute. So you got to be thinking hard about how you want to use that. And all you have to say is diabetes. Like, I know it's a problem, right? I mean, like, everyone knows. In fact, they just, like, the new hypertension rules just came out, right, like yesterday. Like, turns out, like, way more people have high blood pressure that's, related to diabetes. But, so you don't necessarily need to spend much of your 1 minute talking about it. And I like how you framed up, reducing dependence on drugs, lowering pain, and bringing hope were the three pillars of what you're doing. I thought that was a great way to frame it up. And then you talked about how it's software to guide physicians and an app for a patient. What I immediately start thinking, okay, this is a crowded market, a lot of digital health companies, a lot of apps out there. You go to the core of like, hey, diabetes is a problem. We're going to do these three things. We have an app. Here's what's special about it. Here's what's unique. Here's what's innovative about it. I think would be a good thing to think about.
Well, I love the 3 points you made. I thought they were great, and I thought it was succinct. And what I really like about that, Victor, is it drove it down to not being so high level. So I really, really liked how he did that. I thought it was a great example for the entire class. The only thing I wanted you to add is what's unique about your solution. That you're trying to look for something that's like a non-drug related, you know what I mean, or more natural or behavioral. And so I just wanted you to emphasize that, but I really, really liked you drilling into those 3 points.
I fully concur with all points made.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I missed the most important point to say that nowadays there is no company who is offering remission of diabetes. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? He wants
it
to,
was not clear. So
as long as you can back that up, hopefully over time with results, but that you have you're looking at complete remission and you're proof positive that it can work. These are the ways you're going to go about doing it. That's compelling out of the gate. It's like that's you know what I mean? Making a bold statement.
I think the personal statement would be a great hook because it says it can be done and I'm going to show others how to do it.
Okay.
But also I did note that you didn't really talk about the competition. How are people solving this problem today? Why is it insufficient?
Okay.
And to Wes's point earlier, like there's 5 different things you can do in a pitch, and you're just gonna have to like pick like the strongest, most compelling angle and go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. Overall, I think for everybody in a 1 minute pitch, like what is the one key selling point that you want to get across? Is it your background? It could be your background. Be like, hey, I'm on a mission to solve this, and here's why I'm uniquely qualified to do that. You want to like, or hey, I just invented this really amazing thing that, usually like venture investors will sort of, latch on to something that like it's usually the team or the market are the two things that.
For sure, you empathize. You know this problem, and then but two, you do have a unique solution, right? And so I think that's a nice combination.
Okay, and like usually this could be in the beginning. Like to talk maybe about yourself or whatever you invent in the beginning.
You can, but just in a minute too, on like a 3 minute pitch, you can't obviously spend the whole minute talking. I mean, he does know this personally, but if that's what you talked about, it would be unfortunate, but then we wouldn't know what your solution is, so you're gonna have to do both.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it was quite stressful for me because
I know you seem like it's relaxed than you sometimes are, for whatever reason, but why was it
I
stressful?
mean, this was quite difficult for me to compress everything in 1 minute. Maybe
Yeah.
I need some more practice to do it in a better way.
Minutes are hard. 1 minute's hard.
What do you think went well though?
I mean, this is for the first time I'm doing in my life, compressing a thing to 1 minute, but I could get my message. I felt that I could convey my message well.
So I went, you go west, so I liked how you said that one of the most beautiful states in India. Immediately I was like, ooh, I want to know about the most beautiful state in India. That sounds really compelling. So I thought that was a good thing. But then just being really crisp in actually what you're doing, I kind of got the idea of a concierge service. And I was going to say actually for both you and Victor, make sure you just slow down a little bit because with your accents, when you're going super fast, sometimes it can be hard for me. Maybe it could be I'm just stupid. I fully admit that. But just make sure you're slowing down. And there is a tendency when you're trying to get to a minute that you do speed up naturally for everybody. So just make sure that you're at a cadence that is, you know what I mean, relaxed, a little bit more relaxed. Did you have?
Yeah, I thought you did a nice job. I didn't think you looked particularly nervous.
Okay, maybe I've seen him pitch more.
Okay, I've only seen the pitch once.
So say to him, it was great.
Yeah, no, you were clear. It's on one hand, an interesting and compelling idea. This idea of training people in villages to find ways to develop income in the hospitality industry. I think it's compelling. We've looked at companies like Traveling Spoon, which is a couple of Haas founders from a couple of years ago that are doing something similar in Southeast Asia. But on the flip side, it's also it's a very competitive industry. Airbnb's out there, so tie it back to something something that goes beyond me thinking, oh, this is just like an idea you came up with yesterday. Like give me some meat around it. This is tie it back to you personally. Whatever. I did this when I was in high school, or my parents, host travelers, and some unique insight beyond just hey, this is just a random idea I came up. I think would be helpful.
Or from your angle, it's, that there's government funding available to explore this opportunity.
Okay.
Because you've had some experience with that angle too, right?
I work as Chief of Staff to the Indian Tourism Minister. Can I use that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mention that.
And none of us knew that, right?
I was a co-founder of Airbnb. Should I mention that? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Definitely
add, I'm
mention that,
already
yeah.
partnering with the government of India to do this. So join me in the thing that's already happening, rather than like a conceptual thing that might happen in the future.
See, nobody here knew that, right? Did anyone here know that? Yeah. Sweetie did.
I would add, you have a beautiful way with language, right? I think you had really strong visuals when you were talking about the beautiful region and ghost village. These are really strong phrases that like immediately painted a picture in my mind. So I really like that. I would say especially for your solution, because you have multiple elements to it, kind of tell me and we're gonna solve this problem in 3 ways, and then tell me first, we're gonna have an AI platform. Second, we're gonna train homestay owners. Third, we're gonna have a concierge service. So that kind of helps my mind organize my listening, especially in this really short time frame. But yeah, I thought you did a nice job. The ask kind of trailed off. I feel like I actually didn't have time to write it down, so I'm not even sure if you had an ask.
He did 50K.
Okay, 50K, that's right. You had
That's
it.
what
Okay.
yeah, she did.
Maybe I was just writing quickly. So there you go.
Thank you.
Good.
And so you can emulate what Victor did, just saying the 3 items.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you. You said something like the virtual assistant within. I actually wrote it down. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
have that
really, it's
down.
things like that. And you're normally Mr. Catchphrase yourself, Danielle, but people, people can remember. You can't do it all throughout a minute pitch. It'd be all jargon, but think about that. It was well done, that piece of it. Okay, speaking of Daniel, here we are. So was that the best pitch you've ever given? Are we still living up to that very first pitch?
It felt good knowing that I kind of gave that off the cuff, like going through the big ideas process this past week. Thank you, by the way, for all your help. We were trying to just think about how we can best do this, so we didn't really have. That was basically the skeleton. So we're just let's just get test run, I guess. But it felt okay.
So thoughts?
Yeah, let's see here. Pharaoh. Okay, so yeah, you're addressing the sort of lack of retention with MOOCs, right? I mean, that's a big problem. People are aware of that problem. And I just saw something in the last couple of weeks. Someone said MOOCs are dead. Did you hear that? No, that's
Good news for us.
I think it was a MOOC that said that. Anyway, so. I think there's something to it. First of all, yeah, I mean, I think your presentation skills are really good. You have a great stage presence, loud voice, good job on that front. I think that you're talking about building a two-sided market, right? With sort of tapping into teachers and tutors that are willing to develop skills for students, right? Is that the idea? Yeah. So I guess maybe just a little bit more on maybe go to market, how do you even begin to build that kind of market? And I like startups that can really focus narrowly early and then go more broadly
They're
later.
not getting this advice from anyone.
This is the
I'm
first
just
time they're hearing
supporting
this.
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a joke, because that's what we've been hearing.
Okay.
That was one of the huge elements that I didn't know where to put in there. It's we have a focus thing, but I didn't know where to put it.
Yeah, it's good. It's we're doing, this skill sharing for blank, whatever, wherever you see a big market or something that you have personal connections to or ties to, but all the other markets can come later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with 92% online courses and how you start. I thought it was actually very captivating. And to Wes's point, just when you list it, you could do 5 different things like repair your car or do this. I mean, that could be okay too if you had time in a minute, but you want to say we're going to enter this market we're going to become the place to go to learn how to do this, right? For this segment of users, and I think that was that extra credibility.
I would say, to be a slightly dissenting voice, I liked the 3 examples that you provided because you can't really learn how to repair a car in a MOOC. You know what I mean? And so those are kind of like tangible examples. I agree that having and say, and we're going to start with blank, might be a nice way to just wrap that up.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thanks so much.
Same.
Yeah,
you guys have an ask?
You had a nice relaxed cadence. Yeah. I don't know if you had an ask.
Did you have an ask?
I mean, it was super soft. It was like, oh, we'd love your help in, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So more of an ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Easy as pie. Michael, congratulations on pitching. So used to been up there. How did you feel pitching?
Yeah, so I think it was a meeting is always like nerve-wracking. I think in terms of delivery, I think I kind of wish I had spoken slower and made a little bit more eye contact and had made a little bit more critical pauses. I think in areas that could have been better in terms of content. I think I wish I spent a little bit more time on the solution portion of it, and I've been maybe a little bit more specific and more tangible in terms of what exactly what tangible benefits that our users would have. And also maybe having a bit more of a captivating hook to go with it.
Okay, great.
What did you think?
I thought the delivery was great. I thought you did a great job presenting, good stage presence as well. I somehow missed what the WIP program was. Maybe I zoned out for a second. I'm sure you defined it, but maybe keep that in mind if people didn't quite hear what it was. Maybe there's a way to talk about it in more general terms. A little bit more about how it works. So it's an app for nutrition, right? Is that what it is? Focusing on kids. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, it's basically kind of like offers like nutrition education and resource management and a peer support network.
Okay. I think a hook around how you're going to get people to use it and create behavior change, because that's always a hard one. And there are a lot of apps out there that are trying to get people to eat more healthy and buy better food at the grocery store. So maybe just a little bit more, like, again, towards my general comments to all the presentations, like what's the secret sauce, the unique qualities of this that's going to cause people to actually use it.
I was just going to say, this is one of the examples where you could start with something really great. Did you know 1 in 5 kids in inner city, or 3 in 5 kids, or whatever?
Yeah, so like
and your focus is on children. Yeah, I mean, I think you could start with that and really capture people's attention, and then what WIC is almost doesn't really matter. They immediately know what problem they're trying to solve.
I would add another potential hook opportunity would be to tell the story of like a mom at the checkout counter at Safeway, and she's realizing that her vouchers can't pay for the milk she selected because it's not one of the things that's on the list, and she had no way of knowing until she got there, and it's really embarrassing. Could this problem have been avoided, right? So like you can kind of paint a lot of that problem into a really quick story, situational story, and then if you need to define what WIC is as well, try to say, and her vouchers are for this nutritional supplementary program called WIC. Access to that is very difficult. We're going to solve that problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Atid. That's it. So I think I've seen you have a little bit more energy in some other presentations. So maybe you were a little caught off guard today, with the pitch. But I just would be careful, like I liked how you started talking about small businesses and the diaspora. I think would just be kind of like what Victor said. I would try to think of I'm going to do these 3 things. Would be really great and really clear.
Yeah, because of the scope of the product, it's kind of hard to figure out what direction. But I liked just kind of talking about what we're doing and really run over one thing. So I think that's good.
Yeah, and you didn't seem like even talking now. You didn't seem like your normal energy. So just remember, how do you get yourself kind of pumped up before you present when you get in front of the audience in a couple weeks, and some techniques of smiling and taking a walk or making sure you have that power bar an hour before, whatever that. mechanism is, I think would be really helpful, so.
I would love to have heard an example of the kind of businesses that you'd be working with. Also, a mention of sort of your go-to-market strategy. How are you going to partner with existing distribution channels? Because I don't think you want to build this from scratch. I mean, you can tap into Amazon, eBay, these other ones. And then lastly, I think, I've seen a fair number of companies kind of trying to bring sort of artisanal goods to market because it seems like somewhat obvious thing to do. Like, hey, they're building these goods. There's a great market for it in the United States. World of Good did this for a while, and they were eventually acquired by eBay. But I think it's really important to talk about whether or not there's a demand for these kinds of things, right? Because you can bring them to market, and the U.S. is a great market, but do people want to buy? Like, what is it you're talking about? What kind of products? And for example, if you're like, there's these amazing rugs coming from Lagos, Nigeria, and I think they can compete in the global stage of the rug market, and we're going to work with these rug dealers. I mean, that could be quite interesting because it's a niche and it's maybe higher end, higher money, more money, that kind of thing.
I would add your personal connection would be something that would be really
Yeah.
powerful.
Right.
Say, I'm part of the Nigerian diaspora, and my colleagues and I are desperate to buy more Nigerian products. Nobody's bringing them to market. I'm going to bring those products to market. Right? Something that's personal, something that brought you to this and drives your passion in it. I think would be a great hook, and then starting to talking about what it is you're doing. I think the ask I don't know about the ask.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Did you have an ask? Did we miss that? Think about that.
I didn't ask, yeah.
Okay, good. So open house?
Open house, yeah.
I didn't have it.
No, I had one, but I didn't say it. Like, it's like raising capital for launching an open.
Okay, cool. So think about that. How did you feel with your pitch?
I'm always a bit stressed for some reason. I need to try to practice a bit fun of knowing everything. Because when I'm alone, it's totally fine. Then I get disturbed. When I see like people's faces, it always disturbs me. So.
But that in a camera is kind of weird. But being out here can be a little weird too. I just want to warn you guys. It's a big room, and we did invite a bunch of people, so just kind of be prepared for that. Again, before you get up, do what I'm doing right now and just smile a lot. Like just go around smiling. It actually will create some nice endorphins, but also that's what you probably want to do when you're up there on stage. So just kind of keep that in mind. You did seem a little bit more tense than sometimes you do, but I think you have a nice stage presence. And I know you're writing your solution well. I would just say, how do you get to that quicker? In the past, I've seen you pitch and talk about what a waste it is to have this space that's not being utilized, and other things. Or wouldn't you love to have a place? Does anyone here, do a hobby? Wouldn't you love a place where you could go play the piano? Something like that is kind of your hook, and maybe that'll also help you relax a little bit. You know what I mean? Because you'll get people into it, and you'll sense that from the audience.
I think it's a really cool concept. I mean, the whole idea, there's all these underutilized resources, like throughout our day, our cars that sit in our parking lots and are on the street. I hadn't thought about using, homes or apartments for office space. I think it's a really cool concept, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about what was your sort of unique insight into this? Was it just, hey, there's all this space. I want to hear more about that's the supply side. Talk to me about the demand side, especially in the world that we live in now with WeWork, which is like taking over the world and has a $10 billion valuation now. Talk a little bit about the demand. Would the demand be there if I put my house up on this platform for people to co-work in during the day? Would the demand materialize? Have you talked to people that want to do this? Because there are other spaces now, right, to go and work.
For us, WeWork is like the hotels that Airbnb disrupted, let's say. WeWork is just a traditional office, but open to everyone. So they have a huge investment in real estate, and they're not really scalable because they have to build a huge building, right? So it's okay, they can buy a lot of buildings, but it's like the hotel thing. And Airbnb completely kind of disrupted that by spreading out, and it's a distributed network of co-working spaces that we're proposing. that is on a shared economy model.
Yeah, so we got the big concept of that. It's just like, how do you know, you guys spend a lot of time talking about what it'd be for independent contractors, and at one point you're looking at, you know, people that like to play music. It's really hard to get access to a piano, but a lot of homes have pianos that have been used.
It's difficult to like, I think in 1 minute, because I have a lot of things to say about that.
Yeah.
We did a lot of research and we have a lot of, like, if we want to talk completely. But in 1 minute, I'm wondering how much I should spend on the problem versus the solution and versus the traction we have.
Yeah. Well, I guess like the problems, the demand, the solutions, the supply, right? So the supply part of it is like, okay, it's all there, it's all underutilized space. I get that part of it. That's easy to wrap my head around. I guess what I would like to hear more about in your 1 minute is like, what's the problem? Because right now, it's not obvious to me that it's a problem, that office space is a problem. I mean, I have a general sense that rents are high. I work with a lot of startups that are looking for space, but also know that like WeWork is out there, and the Impact Hub and Port Workspaces in downtown Oakland. You know, and those are, you know, there are advantages of being in an office space like that versus a house, in terms of like the social interaction and access to the cafes there and all that kind of stuff, conference rooms. But you know, so to say you have things to say about the demand, I think that would be really interesting. Yeah.
I like the word micro rental. Did you guys come up with that?
Yeah, micro rental.
That's awesome.
Somewhere.
I like it. Copyrighted. Trademark it. Get to it quick before Wes does.
Okay, Tokia.
No, you did so great.
So I think you were thinking Taku was going to pitch, and then he had the flu, or something like
I
that.
actually really like pitching. Probably not. I was still making edits to what I just wrote. So.
Yeah, so I mean, Roger, I think you know this. You have some naturally, I mean, I always hate to use the word naturally, but you have some great energy and stage presence when you pitch, and your enthusiasm. If anything, I've seen you be even more passionate or relaxed in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you end up being the one that pitches, and I'm almost pitched in the past too, so I don't know who you're going to decide to pitch. I'm sure that would be the case. I do think you need an ask also. I don't know if I heard an ask.
Can I ask for help on that? I don't know what to ask for.
It seemed like you were recruiting counselors.
We are almost done with that,
Okay.
and our funding is pretty secure. I really don't know
You
what.
could always use more money.
Yeah, could you use more money?
Yeah. Oh. I guess money is nice. Yeah,
It's up to you.
We would like some of that.
I saw a big dollar sign on your PowerPoint last week.
Yeah, I think for me, I thought you did a good job, and you did a great job the second time without your notes. You know, understanding the problem that you're solving. I mean, a lot of people spent a little bit too much time on the problem. Yours, you didn't really identify. You didn't define the problem. You said that you're creating programs for Japanese high school students, and that's something I don't know anything about. You know, not being Japanese and not being in high school, and I'm not aware that a problem exists there. So I think you need to define what the problem is that you're going after. Like, there's all these Japanese, you know, second generation Japanese high school students who are demanding, you know, more curriculum that the existing private and public schools aren't providing, or something along those lines. And kind of further define what the solution is, because you said something about at the very end, we're gonna have a great summer. So is it like a summer program, like a summer camp, or is it an ongoing thing? So.
1 week. Yeah, and I mean, seeing the videos was helpful, just to kind of get the emotional impact you guys have. But you are trying to bring, when you said bringing something to an expert, it made me sound like I could decide that, you know, I teach yoga and I'm going to go there and teach yoga, and maybe that's what you do. But there's some precision around bringing something that is American, I think, somewhat American approach to things. In talking, hearing you guys, I mean, what is the unique educational module you do bring over that they're not getting in Japan, or maybe it's just you know what I mean?
It's the opportunity for them to be able to find something that they really like. It's whether that's American or Indian or it could be anything.
Okay.
But just the fact that they can find something that they love doing, or realize that they don't like doing something.
Okay.
It's like that kind of opportunity for them.
Yeah. And one thing, and it's hard to capture this in like a pitch or like an executive summary, but like one thing that really stood out to me when we ran the camp is that we had kids saying like, I've never dreamt before about what I could do.
Yeah.
And that's something to us as like Americans, it's like, oh, you do that starting from kindergarten.
Yeah.
But they never had the opportunity to do that, so that's like what our camp is trying to do, but it's just really hard to capture
Well,
that.
isn't that the problem then?
Yeah, that's
the problem.
The problem, but
Let's
it's hard
start,
to
let's start with that. No, let's start with that.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. Oh, good stuff. Yeah.
Well, before you said that, Momo, I was thinking, I mean, the implied problem was that the Japanese educational system is very prescriptive. And that students are not given flexibility to explore and to like play, and that here's this opportunity that's unique that is not available anywhere else in Japan. We're creating this unique offering, and people are busting down our doors to get in.
I
because
think
it's
one
such
of
a
the
compelling-
hardest things that I'm struggling with is I want to be able to pitch this and like find it, like be able to tell people like we're helping these students without attacking anything about Japan, because that's not we're not out here to do that, right?
Right.
If Japan's gonna do their thing, they're gonna do their thing.
Yeah.
But we want to be like a supplement. But if we say we're a supplement, then we're a bit. I'm sorry. We're not very out there, right? We're not medicine, you know. It's not a supplementary pill.
So you have to think about how to do this in the most appropriate manner, but,
Right.
you know.
It's not an attack on the.
Well, and I would just say, I mean, there is something you're saying, like, people are reserved in Japanese culture, you kind of remove that spontaneous reserved, and so you don't want to do that and sound negative. Some camps might do that just by the nature of being together and, you know, the expressiveness and community that comes out through camps, but you're gonna have to think about what's comfortable for you in that. Because I do know what you're getting at, especially after seeing the video, you've talked about it a lot, but you know, getting like, they're breaking down barriers.
I mean, one way to maybe make it more positive would be to say, you know, what's the potential these kids can achieve with the addition of this camp, right? And that way you're not saying like directly like, oh, they're never gonna achieve that without this camp, but you're saying like we can make it even more possible that they will become successful because they're emotionally aware and tapped into the inner heart and that stuff. I thought actually when you did the Sans Notes pitch, I liked it so much more because you took pauses that added gravitas, and I also understood the need much more clearly because the first time you really kind of like raced through that and I didn't have time to like hear it. So the second time I actually really liked it, even though I know that you didn't like it. But the delivery for me was a lot stronger.
Okay.
So, and I really liked also when you kind of got stuck, I could see that a little bit, but then you just kept going. You went over that barrier and you said, okay, I'm just gonna say the next thing. Because I don't remember what I was gonna say here, I'm just gonna tell you the next thing, and that's great.
And that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah.
You did smile as much as you normally do, because you were like very focused. on what you're gonna say.
Thank
Because you normally are pretty smiley.
That's
Hey, by the way, you don't have to smile all the time. Obviously, if you're talking about like a horrible disease, kids dying, you shouldn't be like, you know, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's okay to be. Talking about what a smile, Cecilia, like, oh my goodness, you always look like you're so happy to be there and present, and that energy just like, whoo, it's great, it's really
Thank
great.
you.
I'll let you go first. So.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you were well rehearsed. You knew exactly what you were going to say. You had a great, you know, it's so powerful to have. Like, I mean, I don't know what the rules are.
I know we're gonna have to talk about this, rule breaker.
Yeah, I know, but you know, you broke the rules and did a nice job at it.
It's okay to break the rules as long as whatever you did is actually better than, yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any advice on how to improve the presentation because it's fantastic and it's really compelling. Maybe talking a little bit more about you know, the first things you would do or plan to do. I don't know if you had an ask, but like, you know, we're all about, you know, teaching math through music and dance and these different things, you know, the sort of performing arts, and we are sort of ready to go. I mean, because you clearly showed sort of the passion to do
They've
it.
been piling it.
I was gonna ask
Okay.
you, we're starting a pilot in January, should I put that into the pitch? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
got a minute, but.
Right. I think it could be worth it. Yeah. I mean, because it shows, traction and momentum, and you guys are going places.
And you piloted already, right? You've been doing this already in some classes.
Oh yeah, this is like a scaled up, bringing in music
She
and
dance
dance
and
and art.
mentioned that, yeah.
I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more about yourself too.
Okay.
Because like clearly you have a passion for it and you have talent for it. So I'm just I'm making all these assumptions in my head as I'm watching you. Like, oh, she must be like a former teacher. She must be a musician. Like, there's all these things sort of like swirling around in my head.
Okay.
So it might be good to tie it back to your background and your
But
experience.
she left you wanting more.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, you're at the table exam. Dr.
Good.
Cecilia.
That's true.
We're gonna
That's
have to
true.
cut the glockenspiel if I bring that stuff in.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, what do you guys think about props?
It worked for her, please let her do it. I think it's amazing.
I do too, and maybe we can have you go last again.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, if anyone else wants props, you do have to clear it with us. So it's possible, but not guaranteed, okay?
I don't know if you need the screen behind you.
Yeah, I think it actually it didn't really give you anything, because
Okay.
the music, you said,
Okay.
you're counting to 3, you just tell me 0 plus 3, and then you play the thing, and
Okay.
you told me everything that was on
And
there.
then I realized later that you were
Yeah.
doing what was on the screen, but you almost didn't need it. And I'm not trying to be lazy or say we won't put it up, but I think you could get by without it, actually.
Okay.
The props are so visually strong. Well, thank you for staying over, you guys, so thank you for doing that. Did you have any more comments? I mean, we
You guys did great.
basically said you did a good job.
Yeah.
I would say with the just ask a little bit more precisely what you're looking for.
Yeah, like you're about to.
Okay.
Because I'm looking for somebody with this expertise or that expertise.
Okay, so what, if I'm looking for someone to help with fundraising and partnership development, what
You
is
did
that
say that.
expertise?
You should did say
Yeah,
that.
that's probably, I thought you had a pretty clear ask.
Okay.
I like the phrase whole body learning, I thought that was cool, keep that.
Trademark that.
Prior to this class, I've never pitched anything in my life, so
Really?
I just really appreciate all the feedback I'm getting.
Well, so you guys will send you the link so you can see.